Howdy peeps, hope you're doing well. It's been a little while since I've done a video. Not that long actually, but... So, I suppose the way things have been panning out recently as far as the channel is concerned, obviously you might have heard me refer to the term Karmics, low vibrational people, and all of this. And I think it's time that things close to the truth started coming out, you know, in the way people hold themselves, you know, people, the way they go about themselves. Because I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, and I think I haven't actually looked into the term karmic, by the way, this is just my direct interpretation. I suppose you could call it my own intuitive version. You see, someone that's karmic, right, they're generally speaking quite a negative person, right? And it's funny because of recent, I found it actually a bit ironic, and whereas the videos that I've been kicking out recently, and I suppose my own not direct life as in the people that some of them I am in direct contact with, and sometimes you don't really take a step back to observe their actions and see how they are and how they behave. So a karmic, a lot of the time, they kind of pretend to be your friend. You know, they make out that they've got your best intentions at heart and they want what is best for you, but realistically, because they've got this, I think it's the karmic, I think, is the incorrect definition. If you go into the real meaning of what karma is, you see, just to sidetrack to give some insight into this one. You see, a lot of the time people think that karma is a case of, you know, if someone wrongs you in one way or another, right, and then something bad happens to them as a result, right, they tend to think that the cause and effect, or not even, well, I suppose the cause and effect is what caused the bad thing to happen to the other person that actually initiated it in the first place. It's kind of right, but it kind of isn't. It's karma because, as the saying goes, what goes around comes around, right? But to understand karma in itself is the vibrations of what the individual carries and how they carry themselves out in the world. How they may not see themselves in this way, and it is quite, I think it's quite closely linked to these personality disorders that I speak of quite a lot. I think it is kind of related. The more I think about it, it's like, yeah, it actually is. You see, because these people, they walk about and they've got this sense of negativity about them. You know, it's like everything's got to be crap all the time. Everything's going to go wrong. And like in the instance where I was saying, you know, they pretend to be your friend, and really they're not actually your friend. They're trying to keep you down. You know, they're trying to do little things here and there so that they actually feel better than you, you know, or that they feel, to be more accurate, better than what they actually are, right, by having a state of one-upness, even if it's something that doesn't mean anything to you. You know, you got to bear in mind, it comes down to what they think of the situation. 4:10 on the clock. Anyway, when it comes down to these people, you know, it's, I suppose, in the sense that, take where I've spoken about NPD X's and stuff like that, right, where it's been a thing. I don't think I've had that many NPD X's, to be fair. I think in particular one, definitely. Again, totally unprofessional opinion, but I'm talking about the way they hold themselves, right, the way they go about themselves in the world. And it also goes back to that situation of, You know, if you're dating, you know, how do they speak about their exes? What kind of relationships did they have? You know, and look, the same goes for friends, right? You know, if you're meeting someone new as a friend, like whether it's opposite sex, same sex, whatever, doesn't matter, right? Listen to how they interpret and look at the type of people that they hang about with. And digressing back to the video where I was saying about, like, if you're the average of the five people that you hang about with. Now, I don't necessarily mean, when I say that, I don't mean, say, like, if you work in a group of 6 people, 5 people, whatever, right? Well, you're going to get a mix of types there anyway. Now, I'm not saying that if say 3 out of the 5, for argument's sake, have these negative traits, obviously it would be a bit unfair, because at the end of the day you're going to a workplace to do a job, and although you might spend however many hours a day, however many days a week, and so on with them, doesn't necessarily mean that they are people that you would choose to allow into your social circle. Sometimes you do. It depends on the individual. It depends what, I suppose, in sort of like third person, what you're like as an individual. If you're coming from a place of low self-worth, you know, you don't value, I suppose it's not even that you don't value yourself, but you don't think that highly of yourself, and you know, you can find yourself getting drawn to these people because it's, I mean, for starters, they suck people in that have low self-worth anyway. You know, they'll suck them in because they know that they can use them, in the sense where I've been speaking on codependency, right? Without meaning that in any sort of negative way, because at the end of the day, I'm just using this as an example. So say in the workplace, you've got an individual that, for the most part, they might seem to be a bit of a laugh and all of this, and you think, nah, they're okay. And so you become accustomed to these patterns of behaviours, and then maybe they might start joking about and making you out to be the joke, and then it doesn't come from a place of they're just having a bit of banter, a bit of, you know, shits and giggles, as the saying goes, where it oversteps the mark a little bit with you, and you start thinking, well, hang on a second, it's like, you know, that's actually upsetting me now, and you know, if it carries on, there's the potential that we're going to have a falling out, and things might not necessarily end how they want it to, right? And then, of course, maybe you might decide to step yourself up a bit. You find a bit of inner strength, I suppose, and you decide that you're going to give a bit back, and then they don't like it. They can't handle it. You see, this is just it. Now, to explain that whole ego thing and the karmic, you see, all the time that they are sucking the life out of someone else and making them feel bad and small, and you know, and they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing as well, right? So they're making the other person feel bad, and you know, they're I suppose effectively bullying them, right? In a way, whether it's, you know, verbally or whatever. But then as soon as you flip the table and you throw it back on them, you'll notice that they'll just act like a toddler. They'll start spitting a dummy out, they'll kick the pram over, throw all the toys out, you know, and everything is a problem. And you know, look, it comes down to this, it's just that they're not getting their way. That's what it comes down to. They're not getting their way because you flip the table, and they then can't handle it, for starters. It's like, how dare you? The old Greta Thunberg, you know, how dare you? It's like, yeah, they should damn well dare. Absolutely. Go ham on them. Really put them in their place. Now, the only downside to this is, because of the negative, low vibration that these people carry with them, they tend to do a lot more sly, sneaky things, you know. And this is something that, you know, it could be absolutely anything. I mean, I don't know, take for instance, You know what? It doesn't even really matter the background either. You know, that they might come from a wealthy family. They might have no real actual financial worries. They might have no real rent to worry about. They just get, you know, whatever they earn from their job or whatever the case may be. And then, you know, they'll see someone else that maybe has put more effort into life. Maybe they are older, like an older guy. You know, I see this a lot, right? And it's kind of one of them. Like they'll have something that the other person isn't happy about, and they know that they can make a call to an authoritative figure, as it were. So they might phone the cops on them for something, for a nothing burger a lot of the time, right? And it's a combination of things. It's they're doing it for starters out of spite, right? Even if what the other, you know, what the person that they're kind of snitching them up for is a nothing burger. It's like it's no biggie, you know. And to the guy that they're trying to stitch up, it's like, well, if there was a fine involved, you know, it's like they wouldn't really care anyway. It's like, oh, okay, then yeah, whatever. You know, and to them, it doesn't really affect them anyway. But for the person that's actually trying to snitch on them, and, you know, because it comes from a place of jealousy and envy, right? Because it's a place of lack. And again, you know, the other person might have actually worked quite hard. Maybe they've got like a big house and, you know, maybe multiple cars, and, you know, they've got everything that the other person really wanted or really would like. But rather than acknowledging that the other person has put the time and effort in required to get to where they are, you know, rather than seeing the long haul that the other person has gone through, it's easier just to be like, well, you've got this, so I'm going to try and screw you over in one way or another. Right? And then you sort of, you know, when you see that happening, and, you know, if maybe it's someone you work with, or maybe it's someone in your air quotes group of friends, you know, it's not limited to that either. You know, you've got to remember these negative, low vibrational people come from all sorts. Like the video I did the other day, where I was talking about, you know, whereas they just don't care. You know, it's like they're quite happy, rather than being humble with what they've got, right? Which is something that I've definitely learned to be, because I wouldn't necessarily say that I've come from a place of not having anything, but I have come from a place of having what I consider to be very little in terms of material wealth, to having to build my way up. So I look at other people that are, say, doing a lot better in life than myself, and I'm like, well, it's come from one of two places. You know, they've either worked their arse off to get there, and maybe they've been gifted with more IQ or more intelligence or right time, right place, or whatever. But whatever the scenario, they've usually put in enough effort, and it's like, no, you got to take your hat off to these people. It's like, no, they've done what they've done out of, you know, sheer hard work. Now, there are exceptions to this as well. You do get this, I suppose, what I'll call spoilt brat syndrome. And whereas they've literally been, you know, silver spoon fed their entire life, they haven't had to work a great deal, they haven't had to put much effort into anything, they're just used to being given stuff. So as they grow up and they get older and they go through the schooling system and they choose whatever life path they choose, and they see people doing better than them, they hate them. They hate them even though they've come from a place of privilege in the first place, where they haven't really had to want for anything, or, you know, they haven't longed for anything, they haven't had to strive and put the effort in. So they'll hate on the people that have just been, in some cases, I suppose, the gift of inheritance, whereas the family wealth has been passed down the line, and, you know, this individual might end up a spoilt brat as a result, whereas they don't actually appreciate the stuff that they have. And in that instance, it's a different kind of karmic. You know, again, usually very shallow, superficial people. Not much chance of doing much introspection on themselves. 4:32 on the clock. 14:32 on the clock. But you see, that's just it. When it comes from a place of someone's ego, you know, oh, I've got more than you, and I've got all this, and I don't need that, and you know, if they're constantly having to say these things, it's a self-reassurance that they are better than you. And I won't lie, it goes a lot deeper sometimes, and people just don't realise it. And whereas it's a case of, look, whether they've, I mean, I think a lot of the time, if they've worked their way to it, then I think a lot of the time they're going to be more likely to be humble about it. But if they've had to cheat, con, steal, and do all of that, you know, in order to get to where they're at, and, you know, screw people over, treat people like trash, and, you know, shit on people that actually, you know, thought that they were friends, you know, it comes from a place of their own negative, low self-worth in the first place. And again, a lot of the time, they're not willing to do the introspection, you know, on themselves. 15:49 on the clock. That they won't do that. And they're not interested in doing that. Because a lot of the time, it's just easier, digressing back to the individual that just walks around being unhappy that other people have got stuff that he hasn't, despite the fact that he or she, by the way, that have got stuff, but they've actually worked for it, they've put the time in, and they've hit their own sort of potential, as it were. You know, again, and it comes down to a limited self-beliefs, you know, a limited self-belief system. Whereas if you think, I don't know, I'm not, well, you say you think that you can only achieve so much. Now look, to a point, you know, you got to be real as well. You know, if I'm going to sit here and think I'm going to become the next Stephen Hawking, I've got another thing coming. Right? I just do not have the IQ or the intellect for it. Now, that being said, there are other avenues that I could go down if I'm willing to actually start looking into it, and, you know, or for yourselves for that matter, you know, maybe you have, I mean, that's, for me, that's not a self-limiting belief, that's just a fact. I ain't going to be the next Stephen Hawking, right? It's just not. I think I've spent far too much time dicking about as it goes. But and again, you could argue for other contributing factors. You know, people have their own little issues. Now, that's not to say that they should use them as excuses, you know, like, oh yeah, I've got a bit of autism, or I've got a bit of this, or I've got a bit of that, or I've got depression, you know. Again, look, I'm not saying that people with these things are using them as an excuse. Sometimes they are actually a contributing factor as to why there is only so far that they can go. But if they're not even willing to enter the race in the first place, if they're not even willing to compete, then they're not expecting to get, and they're expecting to get somewhere. It's like, you're a fool. You are literally a fool for thinking that, you know. Clown. But then this is just it. So when it comes down to these people, and they you know, you see how they act, and you see how, you know, you take a step back and listen to what they're saying. This is what I'm saying. It's like, you've got two ears and one mouth. Use them accordingly. Listen to what people are saying. You know, watch what they do. Be a people watcher. See how they act. See how they react in a situation where something doesn't go their way. You know, do they start bringing out all the excuses? Does it, oh, well, this, oh, well, that, oh, that, the other, oh, well, that person's got this advantage because this, oh, well, this person's got, you know. And eventually, I mean, for starters, personally, I kind of get sick of hearing it. You know, if it's like that on the constant, I'm just sort of like, you know, people that make excuses repeatedly, time after time after time, you know, it's just like, it brings you down. You know, it's the same as, like, say, you know, if you've got like a co-worker, colleague, whatever, you know, and you go in the morning or whatever, and, you know, this isn't the situation I'm in, by the way, I'm just using it as an example, you know, and you're like, morning lads, how's it going? Yeah. And you can get, like I say, the two different types. It comes down to people watching and like really paying attention to what they're like. So you might get the types that they'll be on the same level. They'll be like, yeah, you know, it's another day, because you know that the day might not necessarily go too good, or you don't know what the day's got in store, and then you might have another one that's just a bit sort of like bland, like not too fussed. They're just like, yeah, just do my job and go home at the end of it. That's it. You know, there's no real emotion or thought of the day and how it's going to pan out and how it affects them, which is also a good thing. 1956 on the clock. And when it comes down to other individuals, and whereas say they want to go in and, you know, I mean, sometimes it's difficult because, like, sometimes you might actually have something happen on the way into work that gives you something to talk about. Now, at that point, it's very important to pay close attention to the reactions of the other people. You're going to get the people that are going to be understanding and agree, and, you know, whatever the situation was. Or then you might get someone else that will pipe up, and it's like, you know, you've been to Tenerife, they've been to 11 Tenerife, you know, they've done something better or something worse has happened, or, you know, and look, again, that comes from a place of ego. It's like they're feeling left out, so the only way that they can pick themselves back up is by having something else better or worse that they want to talk about that has happened to them. Again, it's the same sort of thing. They're like vampires, they're energy vampires, where they just suck the life out of you, you know. Now, in sort of wanting to close this off, because I'm trying to keep my videos a bit shorter, but it kind of is what it is, 21:15 on the clock. You know, when it comes to the stuff that I've spoken about, whereas like it's been MGTOW and girl power advocates, you know, supposedly we're not supposed to say these things on YouTube because it does things out, lower your ranks and all this, but FEMINISM, yeah, things like that. I mean, I don't see what bloody difference is. Maybe it comes with a negative connotation for a reason. I'm just suggesting, or saying, should I say. But if you look at those two collectives right there, well, as I've said before, a lot of the time MGTOW, or men going their own way, generally speaking, guys that have opted out of relationships, dating, family life, all of that, they just want to go and do their own thing, which, look, is fine. No hate for doing that. At the same time, as has been pointed out time after time after time on the internet, 22:15 on the clock, a lot of the time they're just nagging, whining, complaining about women and, you know, how women bad and all of that, and it's obviously with that, you know, it has a negative effect on the rest of it. This is something like, you know, it all depends on the air quotes label that you identify with. A video that I did many years ago, it's like, whereas the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center out in the US, they either have declared MGTOW as a HATE group, or they want it labelled as such. And in a way, it's kind of understandable because of, you know, I mean, sure, sometimes the internet is just about shit posting and having a laugh and taking the piss out of people, is what it is. You know, and like, because obviously, like, you know, in the manosphere, that's why the manosphere is known as being toxic. You know, because a lot of the time, for better or for worse, you know, they do make fun of, well, entitled females a lot of the time. And again, it's not to say that all women are like this. This is the thing. But the entitled females, where these guys with their channels are literally making fun of them because of the stupidity of the mentality of some of these women. You know, it's like, well, then they then get classed as being some sort of womanizer or something like that, and they just hate women. And it's like, of course, with that, you get the people that do genuinely have low vibrations, and they do have their karmics. They have bad karma following with them, and you know they may have been in the relationship, and they might speak of the relationship they were in a negative aspect, making themselves out to be the victim, when realistically they were the ones that were the problem in the first place. So, of course, when they see things like, oh yeah, men are going their own way, men are guarding their own wallets, whatever you want to call it, you know, they see it as just being this thing of like, oh, well, these guys have been the same, they've been through the same as me, they all hate women too. And it's like, no, they don't. It's you. It's just, for those that it applies to, it's literally just you. 24:46 on the clock. You know, there goes a 20-minute mark. Oh well. And, you know, the same could be said for the girl power advocates that are running around saying that, oh yeah, men are toxic, men are bad, da da da. And it's like, no, your own personal experiences of the men that you have chosen to have in your life have been toxic through your own personal choice. Again, comes down to probably a place of low self-worth, low vibrations, maybe even codependency. But rather than acknowledging that there might have actually been the problem might have been within the choice of partners that they made. And again, this isn't just subjective to opposing sex dynamics. You know, the same goes for the other side of it as well. You know, it's just that. It comes down to the choices that you make, and, you know, whether you chose to stay in these situations or go into the similar sort of foundation of a relationship where, you know, rather than seeing that you weren't happy, not that she wasn't happy, but if you weren't happy, well, then you need to do the introspection on yourself to figure out why you weren't happy in the first place. Because at the end of the day, relationships are about getting together for what you can give to the other person in terms of intimate relationships and friendships. You know, if you're going into any sort of friendship, intimate relationship for what you can get out of it, then, my friend, you have the wrong way of thinking. That is literal wrong think as far as I'm concerned, right? Because you're supposed to go there to help each other become better versions of yourselves. Literally, that is it. You know, so you can uplift one another. You see that your friend or your partner is down. You go there, you assist them, you help them pick themselves up. And it's reciprocal, you know, so you're having a bit of a hard time with something, you know, and if you're the type that you would reach out to a friend, or your friend notices and they ask, you know, rather than dwelling on the fact that maybe you're a bit depressed because you've had a bit of a rough day or a bit of a rough week or whatever, or, you know, crappy circumstances in life, 26:58 on the clock, you know, rather than sitting back and being like some people, these karmics are, whereas they will actually thrive on that negative state that you're in, it actually gives them kicks. It makes them feel good to see you doing bad, because they know that, generally speaking, you probably do quite well at life, but when you have a, you know, you hit a hurdle and you're finding it hard to advance for whatever reason, you know, they'll soak up all your negative energy of being in a place of low self-worth, and, you know, whereas they'll you know, they're showing you compassion to your face while stabbing you in the back, quite literally. And I mean, some won't even show the compassion to your face. Some will just sit there and they'll just quite happily listen to you talk about the problems that you have, and instead of either maybe just being a friend or partner and listening, or being a friend and partner and giving advice, you know, they're just sitting there soaking up all your negativity, because they now see themselves as being in a better place than you. You know, and that is the definition of a karmic. That is someone with low vibrations. And this is what I say, they tend to have these tendencies, and it could be any number of things, like I said in the other video. Maybe, you know, maybe for them to make themselves feel better, they want to go and sleep around with a load of people and don't mind screwing up other people's relationships. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe they lie about anything, everything all the time. You know, maybe they go around, you know, telling untruths about people to try and, I suppose, defamation of character being a thing. You know, but again, it comes from a place of their own self-worth. And eventually these lies come out in the wash anyway, you know. And a lot of the time, these people that do behave like this end up very alone and bitter anyway. And that's you know, that's what it is. And again, like I was saying before, a lot of the time, you know, birds of a feather flock together. Now, unfortunately, some of us do come in contact with these people, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's, I think it kind of is done on purpose, but it's not, because you've heard of the school of life and how, you know, we're all here to learn, and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't just stop at the education system. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond, you know, into your interactions with other people, and seeing how other people treat you, and then learning your own boundaries and seeing how you're going to let people treat you or not, as the case should be. And once you go beyond, once you've learnt these lessons, and I know it sounds harsh, but it's true, we all learn these lessons in life. Once you've learnt these lessons and you realise that maybe you're not comfortable in the current situation that you're in, and that you could have something better somewhere else just by changing your mindset and leaving your old habits behind. Or, you go into these situations and you realise that the way the other person is treating you, it's not right, and it's not the way you would treat someone else. So why would you carry on staying in that situation? You'd want to pull yourself out, Because again, if you're in that sort of a scenario, don't be like the Karmic, where you start playing them at their own game, because at that point, it's like the saying goes, never argue with an idiot, because they'll drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. And that's all I've got for this one. So, yeah, thank you for listening. Thoughts, comments, opinions, feel free to jot them down. Till the next one, stay cool, stay free. Peace out.